This is an exam question about the heart, more precisely about how the action of the chambers, the contraction of the heart, is coordinated by the electrical activity in these three specialized tissues. I'm going to use this diagram, figure 5.1, to explain how the cardiac cycle is controlled and initiated. So it starts off here at structure T, and the structure T is the sinoatrial node, which is pacemaker. All right, and that sinoatrial node creates or initiates the excitation. You can say, you've got to use the term excitation, but you can say the term impulse or action potential. You can't say an electricity or a signal or a message. So you've got to say excitation, impulse, or action potential. They're the key terms that you're allowed to use. That wave of excitation spreads over the atrial walls. So number one, pacemaker initiates it. Number two, the wave of excitation or the action potential spreads over the atrial walls or muscle. You can't just say it spreads over the atrial or over the atria. You've got to talk about walls or muscle. That causes the atria to contract, and that's going to force the blood from the atria into the ventricle, and that contraction is synchronized. They will both contract, the left-hand side, the left atrium and the right atrium will contract at the same time. When that action potential reaches point 4 here, which is U, which is the AVN, the atrioventricular node, there's a delay. So number 4, there's a delay at the AVN. That allows the atria to contract before the ventricles. We want to make sure the blood is forced into the ventricles before then the ventricles contract. That wave of excitation, the action potential, then passes down the septum. So the wave passes down the septum. So the septum is the part that separates the left and right ventricle, sides of the heart. And it travels down part V, which is the bundle of His. So that's the nerve carrying the electrical impulse to the apex of the heart. That results in number 6, the ventricles contracting, and it's from the apex, the bottom of the ventricle, upwards. And that's the electrical coordination of the cardiac cycle explained. Number 1, pacemaker initiates the excitation or electrical impulse or the extra potential. The wave of excitation spreads over the atrial muscle walls, causes the atria to contract, and that contraction is synchronized. There's a delay at the AVN. The wave of excitation then passes down the septum via the Purkinje fibers or bundle of His to the apex of the heart, and that causes the muscle walls of the apex of the heart, of the ventricles, to contract from the bottom upwards, forcing the blood out, up and out of the heart.